What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Young again, about to get it popping. I gotta tell you, this is an episode I was so excited to do. I was gonna do it last night. For anyone, actually, I'm gonna build it up a little bit more because if you can see in the title, big banner spoilers. Okay, so anybody who has not watched the most recent Spider-Man movie just come out, I encourage you, do not watch this video. This is the only time you'll hear say not to watch my stream, because I'm somebody I went into. I don't like being completely in the headset. I'm somebody I went into this newest movie with almost zero knowledge of what was going to happen, and so for me that just multiplied the experience. So who's tuning in right now, maybe now or in the future when you're watching this, it is going to be spoiler heavy. I might be having a guest pop in here, hopefully, and we're going to be talking about specific plot points, very well, like I said, specific plot points, getting very detailed on the plot and certain character developments and stuff. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I encourage you, please don't watch the stream yet. Go watch the movie, enjoy it, have a great time, and then you can come back to this afterwards. It's going to be on YouTube. Actually, it is on YouTube right now, but it'll be on my YouTube channel. It'll be on my Twitch. Right now, it's streaming to Twitter as well. 3 different places you can find this stream after you've seen the movie. But I do encourage that you do watch the movie first because it is amazing. Spoiler for my review of the movie, it is amazing. But I'm not going to talk about it right now, because first I wanted to, I want to build it up, classic, me fashion. But yeah, how's everybody doing? It's been a crazy weekend. Had a lot going on just with, different things happening. And that's work, that's with the stream, that's with everything. I've gone dark kind of on the stream. I didn't do either memoirs on Monday or Deep Nation on Thursday. That is because I have avoided social media almost entirely this week. Obviously, like I said at the beginning, I avoided all spoilers. I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't read leaks. I didn't watch interviews with the actors or director. I didn't watch any press on the movie whatsoever. I did not want to know anything going in. And I already feel like I knew more going in than I want to. Mainly that Melina and obviously that was announced last year. And I did that last, so that was just something, certain things are just going to avoid. Let me make sure you can hear. I want to make sure you. Oh my, it's glitching. Let me see. Is this one glitching too? Which sounds fine, but so I'm going to give it a second to let it catch up. I don't know why I've always had more troubles live streaming to YouTube than I have with Twitch. I don't know if it's easier to run or what. Like I said, I'm new to this whole thing, so I don't know kind of what's going on. I can actually even see YouTube glitching and Twitch not. So I may close it down and stop watching, and that might help. I don't know. Either way, so talk about detail into Spider-Man, but I want to give people a chance to tune in or tune out as much as needed. I may throw, since it's just me talking right now, do something a little interesting tonight. I'm going to try this, but I really don't think I'm not jolly. No, I'm going to find something. Let's see. Again, not really what I'm going for. It's a little better. I can't even hear it, but it helps me if I can hear a little something while I talk. And you get some music, some of my own sound in here instead of using the defaults. Anyways, I got sidetracked. But yeah, it's been a crazy week. I've been, like I said, I didn't do the streams because I was avoiding all social media completely, and that includes Twitch and YouTube. And Twitter. I stayed off of Twitter as well. I wanted to get on and post some updates, but I didn't want to risk seeing something because what I did know is that some of my critics that I do like to watch, I do enjoy watching their reviews and stuff. A lot of them got in for press screenings to the movie, which usually is a day or two early, and sometimes even as early as a week before it releases to the public. I've seen, and I just didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to possibly spoil the movie for me, anyway. And plus, you just have the people who share leaks and stuff that it's very frustrating. I wish we lived in a perfect world. We wouldn't have any spoilers, nothing. You'd have little teasers, and that'd be it. That would be the perfect world. But unfortunately, and we have with people who feel validated by knowing a plot point before everybody else. Unfortunately, that's the case. But that's neither here nor there. I do. I'm somebody. I've gone on record, and everybody who knows that if it's something that I am passionate about and something I really do want to see, I will do my best to not see anything on it. Now, sometimes you're sitting at the theater and you got that 25 minutes of trailers that are playing at the beginning. Sometimes you're going to see something and go, oh, what is this? And then you realize at the end of it what it is. You're like, that's something. I'm excited to see that. Not watching anything else on it, though. And that's usually what happens with me. But I try to avoid anything. A lot of times I don't even watch a trailer. Now, I will watch. I'm not saying I'm against trailers. I've watched trailers before. Obviously, I watched the trailer to the Batman for next March. As much I was conflicted on it. I really didn't want to, but I thought it would be a cool idea to stream Fandom. That's what it was. I thought it would be a cool idea to stream Fandom and watch along with everybody. So I took one for the team, but I really did not want to watch that trailer. But I ended up watching it, and it's fine. It ended up being fine. It didn't give away too much, I think, and I was happy. And afterwards, I got just a little taste, just enough to be really pumped for the movie, and now I can wait. So I haven't looked at anything else. No, like I said, no interviews on it. No, nothing about it. So I know it's the same way with the Spider-Man movie. Typically, I haven't been that way with most of the MCU movies because outside of the Avengers, Endgame, and Infinity War, I really haven't cared all that much. And Far From Home, I'll say. Because while I have loved the MCU, the first Iron Man come out, I don't remember what month it was. Either I was 8 or 9, depending on the month. So I grew up with the MCU, as the movies progressed, I was getting older. And, I was, what year was it? 2019 when Endgame come out. So I would have been 19 years old. I think I've got my times right. It's late. I've been a long day. I think that's what it was anyway. So I grew up with the MCU. And we've talked about it, and I do want to do another episode dedicated to the MCU. While the first episode of Ding Nation was supposed to be MCU themed, we really didn't cover much ground. It ended up being just a time to just goof off with each other, and that's that's fine. It's needed sometimes, but every now and then it's nice to buckle down and talk and stick to a topic. So I think I'm going to do an MCU dedicated episode one day, where I'll just walk through the phases, kind of how I felt through it, and then maybe even give some of my favorites, because they've pretty much stayed the same. I really haven't changed much as far as which ones I like and which ones I don't like, other than just a couple where it's just little shifts in opinion here and there. But for the most part, I've stuck with what I originally liked about them. But I did that. It was like anything about it going in. I'd say Civil War was probably the first one I was like that with. I didn't want to know the plot of Civil War going in. And it's probably actually where I really started doing this. I was 16 when Civil War came out. Depending on the month, at 16 or 17, when Civil War came out. So I was really just starting to really care about movies in a deeper way, because like I've told the story before, in the first episode of Memoirs, I talk about it, where I got into wanting to be a filmmaker very early on. I was 8 or 9 years old, and got to where I was doing it all the time. But at the time, I was an action junkie. I loved action, and that was it. Very bombastic, a lot of fights, a lot of gunplay and everything, but not much story. I didn't really care much about story and anything like that. And it slowly progressed over the years. And then I'd say probably about when I was 16-ish, I started to change a little bit more. I started to appreciate good story and blog more than big pieces. And so it is less on the side of that I stopped caring about certain things, and more that my focus shifted. And I started getting more into drama films. I don't want to say drama, more dramatic, mystery, thriller, obviously horror. If you've seen my bio on anything, I always throw horror in there. But I've always loved the comic book stuff. I love, like I said, Batman he's probably one of my favorite characters of all time. If I was to pick my 3 favorite characters, it's Batman, Anakin Skywalker, and Spider-Man. Those have been the ones that I latched onto at a very young age, especially Spider-Man. I was into Spider-Man and Anakin first. Those were the characters that I really latched onto and loved. And then, I got a little older and then started to love Batman more. And then eventually I just become a fanatic. But Spider-Man, I can't even remember the moment that I started liking Spider-Man, because it seems like I always have. And it's kind of the same way with the other two as well. But Spider-Man, there's stories of when I walking through the mall, and I don't remember it. I was too young to remember it myself, but I get made fun of to this day because I was so little kid and we were walking through the mall and past Victoria's Secret, and I looked up and I said, "Hey, I want to play Spider-Man with her." Talking about the models. I've always been a Spider-Man lover, and so seeing the character evolve over the years has been interesting. And I guess we'll just start from the beginning. So I grew up with the Tobey Maguire movies. That probably goes without saying. I was born in '99, and obviously this, Spider-Man 2. I just remember always loving Spider-Man. I watched the cartoon, and actually, let me see. What's it called? It was just Spider. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to, mix up the name. So I grew up with the show. It was Spider-Man, Marvel's Spider-Man. I think it was in the 90s, 94. So I was watching that cartoon already. I used to spend a lot of time at my grandmother's house, And that was the first thing in the morning. We was getting up very early in the morning and watching Spider-Man all day long. That cartoon, I loved that cartoon. I remember loving Venom. I always loved Venom, and I loved Carnage. Favorite characters, aside from Spider-Man, and then with honorable mentions of Green Goblin and Hobgoblin and all those. So I that was my favorite cartoon, and actually I just revisited it back in like September, and to me it still holds up. I still enjoyed it. I binged a lot of it on Disney Plus, and just it was like just a nostalgia. I was just watching this thinking, man, this is like a mirror, or not a mirror, but it's like a window into my childhood that I'm seeing here. So that was really cool. So I grew up with that. Again, the Tobey, the original Spider-Man movie had come out. I wasn't old enough to have seen it in the theater, and I honestly, like I said, I started loving Spider-Man before I can remember. So it just always was the case. And I love the soundtrack even. I remember that was one of the first soundtracks that I really fell in love with. And I don't even know what to say, honestly. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's just, there's just so much I could say about that original Raimi trilogy. And actually, when I really started getting into them, 1 and 2 were already out. Because Spider-Man 2 had come out, I think, 2004. And I would have been 4, 5 years old. And that was when I really started to get into them and started to really, watching them over and over again and just wearing the VHS tapes out, because that's what we had them on. And so I was together. So those films were like a package deal. And of course, you had not only Danny Elfman's soundtrack, but you had even the Chad Kroger and I can't even think, with Hero at the end. Just a lot of iconic stuff with the original movie, and even with the second movie, just a lot of iconic stuff that just elevates it beyond being just another movie. And I'm probably a little more stubborn than some people, but I always was one that I wanted it to be like that again. And I've talked about it with Batman when I told the story about kind of my journey with Batman versus Superman and Snyder, because I had fallen in love with the Dark Knight trilogy and the Nolan trilogy so much, and that version of the character, that I wasn't willing to accept another version of the character yet. And that's just it. That's how it was for me. I just wasn't in that headspace for it, and it was kind of the same way with Spider-Man. But I'll get to that later when I talk about the Amazing Spider-Man coming out. So you had the Raimi trilogy come out, and it was my favorite movies were those Raimi movies. And then obviously Batman Begins come out in 2005, and then Spider-Man 3, which back in the day when I was young, Spider-Man 3 was probably my favorite. It was a fight between 3 and 2. Was always my favorite because I loved Venom. And as I got older, the I won't even say the less I liked Spider-Man 3, because I still, to this day, I love Spider-Man 3 more than most people. And not even ironically, like some people will say, I love it because of the memes. It created so many memes. I love it because I love the movie. Obviously, now I have my problems with it, mainly Venom being my biggest problem with it. And, I've suggested some ideas, just talking with people, ways that I think it would have, and for me anyways, the story would have worked better. But I guess that's for a different day. But I loved, all 3 of the movies, and those 3 movies were my childhood. And then obviously I grew up with the prequels. Like I said, I was born in 99. Phantom Menace come out in 99. And Revenge of the Sith come out in 2005. So all of my favorite movies were coming out right around the same time. And I'm an avid prequel defender as well. But Anakin Skywalker was always one of my favorite characters as well. Like I said, you had Spider-Man, Anakin Skywalker, and Batman. were my favorite characters, and still to this day are probably my favorite characters in all of media. Um, and it's an interesting because I just think all of these characters disappointed me. I won't say all these characters, all these IPs disappointed me in some way too. Because fast forward to the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy, like I said, I loved the Tobey trilogy. Beyond anything, it was my favorite movie trilogy of all time. Like I said, up there with it was the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, and Lucas's prequel trilogy were my favorite movies of all time. Then Amazing Spider-Man comes out, I think in 2012. I could be wrong. I'd have to look and see the date. And I was immediately disappointed. And nothing against Andrew Garfield himself, but I hated his portrayal of Peter Parker. From day one, I did not like it. I remember watching it with my family because we didn't go to the movie theater. We would rent it on Redbox when it came out, and we would watch it in the living room. That's how I always watched movies growing up. And I remember we watched The Amazing Spider-Man, and it was weird. I was enjoying it, but I wasn't enjoying it at the same time. It was weird. It was kind of this duality where part of me was really enjoying like the action and the web slinging and Lizard and Dr. Connors and all that. I was loving that. And even with the cranes and you know, Gwen Stacy and her dad and all of that, I loved all that, but I didn't like Peter Parker. And when you don't like the core character of the story, even if you like everything else, it's like I said, it's a duality. It's a two-sided coin where, yeah, I love everything else, but the main character that's driving this is not working for me. And that's how it was. I did not like his portrayal of Peter Parker. Even his Spider-Man. Now, I'm more of a defender of it now that I've gone back and I've revisited those movies. There's things that I like more about his Spider-Man now. At the time, I didn't like his Spider-Man. I should have said that instead of saying just Peter Parker. I didn't like his whole portrayal of Spider-Man and Peter Parker back in the day. I've gone back and I've revisited it since, and other than the interactions between Gwen and Peter, I don't like his Peter. And really even some of the interactions between the two, I don't like how he plays Peter. And I didn't like his Spider-Man. Mainly like the carjacking scene. To this day, I still don't like the carjacking scene. I think it's Deadpool in a Spider-Man costume. So I was never a fan of it. I was reading. What was that? Okay. Do this. Okay, never mind. But yeah, so I never was a fan of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Like I said, I've revisited it since, and I've grown to like his Spider-Man a lot more. Again, still don't like the carjacking scene. There are a couple other things that I don't like. I think the school fight is awesome. Again, like I said, I like Lizard as a villain. I thought he was compelling. I liked Gwen Stacy and what she brought to the table. I liked her dad. I liked, you know, the city. I liked it all except for Andrew's Spider-Man. And I don't blame Andrew. Like I said, I have nothing against Andrew Garfield. I think he, and especially since, you know, when you hear the stories about how much he loved the character and how excited he was to play the character, and just how much the studio and the script really held him back. So I feel for him. But again, being honest, I don't like his Spider-Man back in the day. Like I said, there's some things I like about it, but it's still a very disappointing portrayal. My phone is getting blown up right now. What is this about? Let me answer this back real fast. Anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to get sidetracked there. I had to answer that. So, yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2, I don't like it at all. I never liked Amazing Spider-Man 2. I remember watching it and being so frustrated with the movie afterwards that I completely just wrote it off. Again, I've revisited it since, and things that I hated about it, I hate less, and things I like about it, I like just a little bit more. But overall, I just don't like either of those two movies, and I wasn't excited to see what else they were bringing to the table. And at the time, that was right around the time of Avengers, I think. Like I said, I think it was. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, 2012 and 2014 were the two Andrew movies. I think right around that time, Avengers was big and the MCU was growing very fast. And, there was buzz about, wanting Spider-Man to join the MCU as early back as that, I remember. And I remember dreading Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man joining the MCU. Because at this point, I was really liking the MCU. I loved Iron Man. Wasn't so crazy about, or I loved Iron Man and Iron Man 2. I loved them both. I wasn't crazy about Captain America as much. Wasn't as crazy about Thor. I remember falling asleep in Incredible Hulk. I did watch it, but I don't remember anything about it. I loved Iron Man's movies, and Thor's was okay. I'll say that. I didn't hate it, but there were things that I loved about it. I loved Thor himself, but I wasn't enjoying. I've gone back and watched it, and I enjoy it in some ways, and then there are some things about the movie that they bother me more on a technical side than anything else. But and then Avengers come out. I loved the Avengers movie. That was one of the first movies I've seen in the theater. It was the same year of Dark Knight Rises, which was also amazing, and it was just a great year for movies for me. And then I saw The Amazing Spider-Man and was disappointed. And I dreaded him joining the MCU. I did not want him to join it. And I wanted Toby back. And so that was my first big disappointment with, the Spider-Man character. Like I said, I love Spider-Man. Very important to me. Very formative for me. I'll switch this up. I'm getting sick of hearing that. Very good for me. I love Spider-Man. And this was my first big disappointment. Like I said, I love Spider-Man 3 even. And up until this point, I had no misfires. And then this couple of movies misfired hard for me. And then enter... It's kind of funny thinking about it now, because you had 2012 and 14, Spider-Man disappointed me. Then 2015, Star Wars disappointed me. And then 2016, Batman disappointed me. All three of my favorite IPs had let me down just consecutively. And obviously now I've come around on Batman vs. Superman, and I hold it in very, very high regard. I still hate the Spider-Man or the Star Wars sequels. And actually I hate them more as time goes on. Things about them irritate me more than they did at the time. But that's for a different video. And Spider-Man disappointed me up until this point. And so it was just all around disappointing. And then 2016, Civil War comes out, and they introduce Tom Holland Spider-Man. Now, again, like I said at the beginning, this is too amped up for me. I need it to be low. Do they not have anything that's just calm? I'm gonna go back to Christmas. No. I feel like I'm filming a Walmart commercial. They don't have anything just chill. No. I don't know if it's distracting to anybody. To me, it gets distracting when I'm hearing just a bunch of racket in my head. I sound like an old man. Let's try this. That works a little better. Okay, so if it's distracting to anybody, let me know in the comments. I just did it because I'm talking with myself, and I'm not playing a video or anything, so it makes it harder for me to stay focused if I am just hearing myself talk. I'm trying not to rabbit trail, but I'm doing a bad job at it. Anyways, trying to keep everything organized here. Huh. Because it's got me, just watch Spider-Man. Oh, yeah? Well, I tell you what, I was kind of building up to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home and kind of give a little context as to why I feel the way I do. But you know what? I want to hear your theories that were confirmed. So lay them on me. I want to hear it. While you type them out, I'm going to go ahead and continue. And then as soon as you're posted, I'm going to read what you say. But I appreciate you tuning in and listening. But yeah, so Civil War come out. Yeah, I was trying to fix this here. My dashboard here I'm looking at, it's getting kind of wacky. It's making it hard to see what's going on. There, I got it fixed there. All right. First off, welcome. Where are my manners? Welcome to the Oasis. This is the Ding Nation studio. I stream all the time. This past week I didn't stream at all because I was avoiding social media completely, because a lot of the critics that I watch, a lot of the people that I listen to after I watched the movie, a lot of them saw No Way Home early. And so I didn't want to hear anything about it. So I completely avoided. I avoided Twitch. I avoided YouTube. I avoided Twitter. I avoided everything. So this is my first day back on anything. So I didn't even stream this week because I was staying away from it so much. Because when I stream, I like to have it open. I don't even want to risk seeing something while I'm streaming. So maybe it's a little excessive, but you know, I tend to be that way sometimes, especially when it comes to a big movie like this. But Civil War comes out. The world is introduced to Tom Holland Spider-Man, and I will say from the get-go, I liked him better than I initially did with Andrew Garfield. But I still was disappointed, and he kind of got on my nerves a little bit. He felt too much like a kid. And at this, like I said, at this point, I had gotten older, a little bit older when Civil War came out. When it came out, I was like 17 years old. And hearing him ramble and talk and always quipping, and I know that's something people care a lot about when it comes to Spider-Man, is the quips and the jokes and stuff. But I felt like he went overboard with it, and even the style of comedy that he was going for just didn't fit well with me. Now, as Civil War as a whole, it's one of my favorite of all the MCU movies. I think Civil War is amazing, but Spider-Man always was one that kind of, I don't even want to say he disappointed me, because at that point I was so disappointed over the Garfield movies that I was ready to accept anything. So I don't even want to say Holland Spider-Man disappointed me, but I knew automatically that I didn't like him as much as I did Toby. And like I said, I was very stubborn. Even at that time, I was very stubborn when it comes to my portrayal of things. I liked it a certain way, and I didn't want it to change. which is one of the reasons I was so, you know, negatively responded to the Garfield movies. All right, let me see. No Way Home confirmed Uncle Ben never exists in the MCU because when Toby and Andrew talk about Uncle Ben, Tom Holland's face act like, who is Uncle Ben? I agree. That was something that I thought when we were watching it. Actually, when I first watched it, I didn't catch it until the scene was over, and I was thinking about, you know, kind of what I just saw, and it dawned on me second. I was like, okay, so in this universe, Aunt May is his Uncle Ben. So you can kind of assume that the Uncle Ben of the MCU universe, the Holland universe, maybe he walked out on May, maybe he died before Peter come in, but obviously it's someone that Peter really has no emotional attachment at all. And like I said, it's his aunt, so it could have been anybody. That just before he showed up, and that was something I don't know how people are going to respond to it. So far, it seems everybody's pretty good about it, but I know there are going to be mad. They're going to say, "Oh, it's supposed to be Uncle Ben." You know, I don't want it. It's not right. It's not good if it's anything other than Uncle Ben. But for me personally, I actually liked the change. You know, it was something different. You know, it was new. It was fresh. Hey, you know, it's this version of Spider-Man didn't lose Uncle Ben. He lost Aunt May. That's interesting to me. Almost kind of like a flashpoint, you know, with Bruce Wayne. You know, he didn't lose his parents. His parents lost him. That's kind of how it feels to me. And it's interesting because it's a different take and it's a new take, but it still shares the similarities in the values and the message that it's trying to get across. So honestly, it didn't matter to me who played the Uncle Ben character. Honestly, it kind of looked like it was going to be Tony. It looked like it was going to be Tony Stark, and his death in Endgame would have been his Uncle Ben moment. But as we saw in Far From Home, it really wasn't, because he didn't learn the great response as Aunt May dying in this one did teach him the great responsibility, and to the point where she even says it. And I really like where this movie left off. The end of this movie left off in a very, very positive way for me, that I think having the Uncle Ben situation allowed for the ending that we got to happen. We see it take place in Andrew's world, in my opinion, and probably Venom 3. Tom Hardy will face Andrew's Spider-Man. I gotta say, when it comes to No Way Home, I went into the movie thinking, like I said at the beginning, I don't know how long you've been watching, but at the beginning of the stream, I mentioned it, that I knew nothing. I knew almost nothing going into No Way Home. I avoided everything. I didn't know any of the leaks. I didn't know any of the new announcements. I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't listen to any of the press or the interviews or anything. Nothing. The only thing I knew was Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx were coming back because it was announced last year, like August or something. So I knew that, and I kind of wish I wouldn't have even known that. It would have been a cool reveal for me, being someone that hadn't seen anything else. It would have been cool to get that too, but that's neither here nor there. So I knew that. I knew that Doctor Strange was going to be trying to make the people forget. I knew that it was picking up after Far From Home. He was, going to go to Doctor Strange, wanting people to forget, and that was going to be the catalyst for the movie. I didn't know anything else. And after watching Let There Be Carnage, and we saw the world shift, and all of a sudden you had J. Jonah on the TV, and you had them laying in the hotel room, and they don't know what's happened yet. I left the theater so pumped up. I was excited. I was like, yes, we're going to have Tom Hardy's Venom. We're going to have Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. I wasn't crazy about Jamie Foxx's Electro, but I was excited to see him with a second chance, second try at the character. I was so excited for that. And when I watched No Way Home, the whole time I was thinking, I leaned over to my brother and I said, I bet you Tom Hardy is going to be an end credit scene. They're going to show Venom at the very end. Something's going to happen that's going to set up what we can expect for a future movie. And when we got there, I saw his hands and the camera pans up and you see Tom Hardy's face. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, yes, yes. I love Tom Hardy and I love his Venom. So I was so excited. And it became one of my only disappointments with the whole movie was that you had that big, exciting ending to Let There Be Carnage, the end credits, got everybody pumped up. I was so excited, and I couldn't even contain it then for him to only get blipped right back. That was disappointing to me. I wanted to see a Tom Hardy Venom and a Tom Holland Spider-Man interact. However that may be, whether it's fighting or whether it's, kind of a buddy cop thing, whatever. I was so excited to see that. And when it just took him right out, it felt like wasted potential. And it felt like a waste of an end credit scene on the side of Let There Be Carnage. Because I feel like you could have just contained it all into one thing almost. Just rewrite it a little bit. You could have made that all one scene pretty much. So I don't know. I was disappointed with that, but I like your idea for him being in Andrew's universe. That's cool. And that would be backed up by the fact of the conversation that they had, on the tower when they said, or on the statue when they said, they were talking about the craziest villains they fought, and Toby says, "Oh, I fought a, alien made of black goo," and Tom Holland says, "Oh, I fought a purple alien, in space," and then Andrew says, "Oh, I want to fight an alien." So maybe that would work. Maybe that's like a little Easter egg for a future installment where Tom Hardy is in Andrew's world. I'm okay with that. I'm cool with it. I think it would be great. I want to see Tom Hardy's Venom interact with Spider-Man. That's what I feel the Venom movies are missing for me, is that interaction. Because Venom and Spider-Man just go together. You have to have that. And to me, I whether it's a Venom 3 or a Spider-Man 3, I would love to see a continuation where Venom and Spider-Man get to actually interact and face off or work together or whatever they do. I want to see that world. And, I was hoping to get it in with Tom Holland's because, as I was going to say, as I build it up, he's growing on. He's still not my favorite. I think Toby is favorite. But, and we'll see. Yeah, that's subject to change. I'm not as stubborn as I used to be. That's subject to change. Especially where No Way Home left off, I think it is very subject to change that Tom Holland could become my favorite Spider-Man. I'm a little mad because that Holland Spider-Man is different. Aunt May actress let be his mom because they change everything. Spider-Man has a mom, I would be happy. Yeah, she was more of a mom. Anything, and actually, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, they even said it. He's basically, or someone told her that basically his mom. I don't know if it was in the interrogation room or what, but yeah, she definitely was more of a mother figure to him, and I liked. She was always just a background character for me. She never really had much to do. I definitely liked the budding romance between her and Happy. That was interesting, and it gave her more to do. In this movie, I thought she was pretty great. Her character was used perfectly, I thought. I can't even think of a way that I would have anything that I would have preferred differently with her. I thought she was great. I guess at this point, I might as well just go ahead and just talk about No Way Home specifically. I've built it up enough. So I didn't like Homecoming when I watched it at first. I won't say I didn't like it. I liked it, but it didn't feel like Spider-Man to me. It felt like just a it felt like just another MCU movie that just happened to have a character dressed like Spider-Man in it. It didn't feel like Spider-Man to me. Now, there were great moments. I thought Michael Keaton's Vulture was amazing. Top tier MCU villain for me. I thought he was great. His motivations were great. The way his character acted was great, and the way they finished off, I thought was great. With him in the in the prison, and they ask him, who's Spider-Man? He says, if I knew who he was, he'd already be dead, which is cool because he does know who's, but he's protecting Peter. He has respect for Peter. He's a very respectable villain, and I liked that. I wasn't crazy about Far From Home. It was just a okay movie. It was a movie that I didn't love, I didn't hate. It was just had a good time while watching it. But that's it. Far From Home. I enjoyed Far From Home more. I think Far From Home has more problems than Homecoming. Definitely with my biggest problem, Far From Home, being with the glasses and the idea of Tony just giving the glasses to a kid, and all the implications that has. That very reckless, and it kind of dampened the movie a little bit. But again, Jake Gyllenhaal was amazing as Mysterio. I already love Jake Gyllenhaal as it is. I think he's one of the best actors working today, and I was excited when they said he was going to be playing Mysterio. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, I loved the cartoon as a kid. I knew Mysterio. I knew who Mysterio was going into it. I knew he was lying. I knew he was going to be the villain. So that twist didn't hit me as a twist, really, because I knew it was going to happen, but it was so great seeing how they pulled it off. So for me, I always liked Far From Home a little more just because of it. Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio was a lot more fun to see on screen, and the trippy illusion sequences were great. But still, Spider-Man was the least interesting part of the movie for me. Like I said with Homecoming, I loved Michael Keaton. I loved the setup of the story, but Spider-Man was pretty much the least interesting part. Same thing with Far From Home. I was not totally on board with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He was less annoying than he was in Civil War. And, he had a few better moments, like his, moments where he closes his eyes and he's dodging all the stuff, or all the drones in the hallway. I loved that. I thought that was a great moment. But as a whole, he felt, he had taken a back seat in his own movie. So I like his Spider-Man, but I never loved his Spider-Man, and I definitely had a lot of problems with his Spider-Man. I've come around. I got to where I really enjoy Andrew's Spider-Man now. Like I said earlier, I have problems with it. There are things that I don't like about his Spider-Man that, to me, it's just a difference. It's just a different preference that I have. But Tom Holland was always my least favorite of the three. And then No Way Home comes out. Great. I'm going to go ahead and read this real fast. I saw it popped up. To me, we haven't seen the last of Andrew Spider-Man because No Way Home felt like setting up some Andrew Spider-Man movie. I agree. And actually, I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, because there's a guy that was supposed to do this with me, Mr. Bobby, was supposed to be in here with me. We were going to be discussing, and we talked about it after we watched the movie. We were messaging back and forth, and me and him were kind of on the same page with what we thought would be a cool setup that it seemed like they opened the door to, but it's not forcing it. It's there. It's almost like it's there if they want to. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, but definitely, I'm interested to kind of hear your thoughts on what we thought as well. So I guess I'll go kind of beat for beat through No Way Home and kind of talk about, how I feel about the movie. I thought about maybe doing like a positives and negatives and giving a review, but to me that I don't know. This movie felt bigger than that. I think I'd rather make it more of a discussion and just talk more specifically. So right off the bat, opens up right where Far From Home left off. I liked that. How the story going? It's going to make a great double feature when you watch them, back to back. It's going to make a great double feature. Um, but so yeah, so it starts off. It kicks right into this plot. He jumps down, he picks up MJ. Everybody, crowd's already forming. He starts swinging away. All this was great. He gets back to the apartment. Obviously you have the funny scene. You hear that Happy and May broke up, and you get the funny scene where they walk in on Peter and MJ, and it looks bad, but it's not what it looked like. And then they see on the news, and all this was great. It was good stuff. Good stuff. Just the interrogations. I was kind of happy that they got through the interrogations pretty fast. I didn't want it to just zoom right through and blink and you miss it, but I'm glad they kept it going, that they didn't stop it and come to a halt and just linger on that. But I'm glad they moved through it pretty good. It did kind of feel a little inconsequential when you get to the part where the first big reveal of the movie, which was Charlie Cox. Again, I avoided everything. I didn't even know this was in the cards for somebody showing up. So that was really cool to see that. I never actually finished the Daredevil series. Got into season 2, but I never finished it. So after seeing it, it made me want to revisit and start and watch it all the way through again. But yeah, that was the first shock of the movie. That was a genuine twist for me because, like I said, I didn't even know it was in the cards. It come completely out of left field for me. So when I saw that cane, I was like, wait a second. And then he sat down, and I saw the sunglasses and everything. I was like, there he is. That is awesome. And I actually clapped. I clapped in the theater, not an obnoxious clap, but like a little, excited clap. Like, let's go. Because I watched it on Thursday afternoon, about, I think it was 7 was a showing I went and watched. So it was the third showing of the day. So not a lot of people had seen it yet still, at least in my area. And so a lot of people were seeing all this for the first time. They were hearing about all this for the first time still. So it was pretty hyper, and everybody was pretty excited when he walked on screen and had that great moment where the brick comes through. He catches it, and he hands it to Spider-Man. They're like, wow, how'd you do that? You're blind. How'd you do that? He said, I'm a really good lawyer. Great moment. I loved it. But then you move forward, obviously you have the scene with the colleges. And again, like I said, I like that they moved the story along pretty good. That they knew what people wanted to see. So they were just kind of quickly moving through some of the things that were just there to set things up. Now, there's part later that kind of makes that where that kind of becomes a little bit of a problem, not necessarily for me as much, but I've been seeing it's pretty popular complaint with the movie. But first, so then it does the college thing, and they're he goes to school, and then you have the teachers and all the kids walking around with their phones on him, and I thought that was a really good scene just to show kind of how society is today. That's exactly what would happen. You'd have everybody would be recording him, and this is I'm going to school with Spider-Man. They're posting on TikTok and everything. That's just perfect for how the world would be today and how school would be in a situation like that. Then I'm trying to walk through it. I watched it again. For anyone who follows me on Twitter, I watched it again for the second time tonight. Because I wanted to refresh. I wanted to make sure that I was remembering everything right, and now I'm drawing a blank on kind of the order of events. So he goes to school. They go up to the rooftop. They talk about college and their future and everything. And one thing I thought they did really good in this film was they made me buy the relationship.
I won't take it's been 2 hours, bro.
Huh? I don't know what he's saying. There's always something. One thing that I never really, I don't even want to say I didn't care. I always liked Ned, even in Homecoming. I thought Ned was really funny. I thought he was really a really good character. He was enjoyable to see. I thought they had a pretty good little friendship. Less so in Far From Home. He was funny. That with the field trip relationship with Betty Brant. It's kind of funny, but other than that, it didn't do much. MJ, I never liked MJ. I thought she was very bland, and especially in Homecoming, she seemed kind of obnoxious a little bit. Far From Home, she was a little better, but still just kind of a bland character. One of those take it or leave it characters. It doesn't really influence the story all that, or it doesn't really impact the story for me all that much. But this movie really made me care about Ned and MJ, and they're all three of them's relationship. It really made me buy it, And there's a scene later in the film, and that we'll definitely get to, that I really did feel for them. But so, anyways, they're talking about their future and everything, and then you see the college. I feel like I'm skipping, but I'm not sure. But they apply for the college or whatever, and you see, the little homage of, May running in saying, it's our first, it's your first letter, and then him reading it and saying, oh well, it's just a backup school. He's getting rejected from all these different colleges, but MIT is the one he's really going for. And then the last one comes in. She's like, it's the last one. He says MIT, so they all meet up. Him, Peter, MJ, and Ned all meet up at that little bakery that MJ works at, and they all have their letters, and they haven't opened them yet. They're all going to open them together, and you have a really good scene, I thought, and with them open it up and they read their letters all there together, and none of them got in. And Ned reads, in light of recent events or in light of recent controversy, they've decided to deny their, deny them the, coming into MIT. And I thought Flash was actually pretty entertaining in this movie too, whereas Flash has been somebody I didn't really care for in the other movies, and in this movie I actually kind of liked Flash, especially he comes in, he's singing the song and he's clapping and he's all excited. He's got his MIT shirt on and he realizes they didn't get in. But that was a really good scene, I thought. It really made me feel, and you could really see Tom Holland did some great acting in this movie. And I'm somebody, while I wasn't crazy about his Tom Holland or his Spider-Man portrayal in the first two movies he was in, or actually in any of the movies he was in, even in the Avengers movies. He had 5 appearances before this one. I wasn't crazy about him in any of those. I still held that he was a great actor. I had seen him in other things, probably the best one is The Devil All the Time. I thought his performance in that was great. But he's just I think he's a good actor anyways. And so that was never something that I had against him. It was just really just the way he was written and kind of the way he acted. But I thought in this movie, he really got to show his chops. And that scene was a great one because it's subtle. Very subtle, and that's something that you don't see a lot, in the modern Marvel movies, is subtlety. Everything's on the nose or everything's spoken out loud or something like that. And he had this subtle scene where they read it, they're like, oh, it's fine, I wouldn't change it for the world. And they all, MJ gets back to work. Ned's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show this letter to my parents, but it's all good. And he pats Peter on the back and leaves. And you just see Tom Holland really portrays it good, where he's sitting there and you can see the pain in his eyes that he feels like he has ruined his best friend's lives. And before that, with Happy under investigation for the missing Stark Tech, he feels like he has ruined their lives. I know, and actually I missed a comment. I'll go in order. So yeah, if Sony really wanted a Toby movie, I would do Spider-Woman, MJ, and Peter Parker in a world. But No Way Home, Toby Spider-Man is a dad now because we all know he's still MJ saying that they have a kid. I'm not gonna say anything to this one yet because again, it falls back into what I was saying about my idea or our idea, me and Mr. Bobby's idea about what I think they could do that following up No Way Home in regards to Andrew and Toby that I think would be pretty interesting. So I'll touch on that a little bit later. And then MJ said, so all that Venom post-credit scene just to bring the symbiote to the MCU. I said the same thing. That's my biggest disappointment with this movie. That's really my only, I don't even want to call it a negative necessarily, kind of a negative. That's really my only one. Even though there are things that I can acknowledge were kind of silly in the writing, mainly the scene that I'm about to talk about right now. But the post-credit scene very much disappointed me. I was so pumped, and he was the one I was looking for. I won't say the most because I was definitely looking for Toby and Andrew the most, but Tom Hardy's Venom was next on that list. I was so excited to see him interacting with Tom Holland, or even just a setup to him. Like if they would have ended it where he says, so I guess we need to go to New York and find this Peter Parker kid, or this Peter Parker guy, or whatever he said. I can't remember exact words. And then he just, disappears and goes back to his. If they would have ended it right there, says, so I guess we need to go to New York and find this Peter Parker guy. Boom. It ends perfect. That is what I wanted to see. I didn't need to see them interact in this movie. I knew they wouldn't. I said it going in. I said it earlier, and I'll go ahead and say it again. Going into the movie, I said, I bet you Tom Hardy's Venom is going to pop up in an end credit scene. That's it. That's all I expected. That's all I wanted. I didn't need him to show up in the actual movie. I needed him to make an appearance and let us know that he's going to be that there's something big coming in the future. And that's what I was excited for. And then when they took him right back out, I was so disappointed. I was like, why? Just to leave, like you said, just to leave the symbiote in the MCU. Very disappointing. But we touched on it earlier about him possibly being a part of Andrew's universe and that being Venom 3, because it definitely felt like they were wanting to continue Andrew's story. And even his comment about he wants to fight an alien when Toby said, I fought an alien made of black goo. And Tom Holland said, I fought an alien in space, a purple alien in space. And then Andrew says, I want to fight an alien. So it's almost like they left it open where if they decided they wanted to do something with that, they have the opportunity now. For me, No Way Home is second best Spider-Man movie. I think I'm with you. I definitely think I'm with you. I've been thinking a lot about it because I figure I'm gonna do a Spider-Man episode in my actual stream one day. Because if you don't know, if I have another stream that I do that is I have Mondays. I do memoirs of an aspiring filmmaker where I talk about movies, things that inspired me, and stuff like that. And then on Thursdays, I have a Ding Nation, which I usually bring in a guest and we discuss whatever topic we've picked. But I was wanting to do a Spider-Man episode for Monday, but I couldn't wait that long to talk about it. So I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going off script. I'm going to do something tonight. So I left the theater at about 7:30 earlier tonight, and I wanted to I had some stuff I had to do, but then I wanted to get my thoughts together before I actually went live to talk about it. And I've rabbit trailed a lot more than I had planned on. But but I plan on doing a ranking. But if I was just going to kind of ballpark it right now, I would say still, even though I like Andrew's Spider-Man a lot more, even if you take No Way Home out of it, I like his Spider-Man a lot more now than I did originally. But his movies, I still am not crazy about his movies. I would probably have Amazing Spider-Man 2 at the bottom. For sure, and the first one's not far above that, if not right above that. I love the Toby trilogy, all three of them, even Spider-Man 3. I know I'm in a minority there, and I don't love them ironically. I don't love it ironically for the memes, like a lot of people do. A lot of people love the movie because it's funny and that it's memeable. For me, I loved the movie before that, and I love it now. Even with that, I can acknowledge the goof ups in the script, and I certainly have things that I wish they would have done differently. But as it is, I love the movie. I know I'm in the minority there, but I love Spider-Man 3. It's a lot higher on my list than it would be for most people. The Spider-Man 2 is definitely my first, and No Way Home, it's up there. I don't know. I would have to sit and do an actual ranking and think about it and give it some thought and do my reasonings and stuff before I figured it out. But it's up there. It's high up. It definitely shocked me. I went in kind of like MJ. Expect disappointment. You'll never be disappointed. I didn't expect disappointment, but I didn't expect great. I expected good and left so satisfied and excited. Now, for the love of God, make Marvel gritty and more, Marvel make gritty and more serious Spider-Man. Enough with the joking Spidey. I agree. I like a Spider-Man that quips, but in moderation. That's one thing I love about the Tobey movies is, yes, he quips, and he has some really corny ones, but it's in moderation. It's not too much. And I think Tom Holland's went way overboard. I said it earlier when I was talking about kind of my lead up to No Way Home. Civil War, when I first saw him, he really got on my nerves in Civil War. I didn't hate him, but I didn't love him either. I thought he was very annoying. And Homecoming, he was still pretty annoying, but he wasn't quite as bad. Infinity War, he was really annoying with a couple of good moments. Far From Home, he was better. Or Endgame, he didn't have much. I liked him in Game. He was fine. He felt a little too childish. We were in space, and all of a sudden, he tells us, they're gonna need us, and he opens the portal, and he's just telling it. He felt too childish, so he kind of was annoying, but he wasn't too bad. In Endgame, Far From Home, I thought he was better, mostly, but I still think that it didn't feel like a good Spider-Man story. It was a decent MCU story, but not a great Spider-Man story. But this one, he sold me. I thought this one, he played it almost perfectly. There's nothing I would have changed about how he portrayed Spider-Man in this movie. Finger crossed X-Men cameo. I had a feeling Tom Hardy going in and out because Doctor Strange will fix it. Yeah, my thinking about that was Venom mentions, in the end credit scene, that there's billions of years of hive mind knowledge that the symbiotes share, and he was about to give Eddie a little taste, and then they got sucked into the Holland universe, and then he sees him on the TV and goes, "That guy." I have wondered since then what that meant. I never knew what that meant. I still really don't know. I have my suspicions, and stuff. That maybe it's just the hive knowledge. He knows indirectly. He knows about Spider-Man because there's a universe out there where the symbiote fought Spider-Man and actually lived on Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3. And that hive knowledge has transferred. So this Venom knows about it, and it pulled him over. That's kind of where I'm at. Obviously, it's not set in stone because it never was fully dived into. But I that's kind of my headcanon on it. My thinking, though, was Tom has no idea. I say Tom. I guess I got to be Eddie Brock has no idea who Spider-Man is. Zero idea who Spider-Man is. He has no context whatsoever as to who it is, what the character is, anything about him. The only thing he knows about him is what the bartender is telling him right there at the end. That's it. He's hearing about all this for the first time. So I think Venom indirectly knowing about Spider-Man is what pulled him in but I don't think it's what should have taken him out. My mind was thinking, okay, he doesn't know Spider-Man. And the spell was everybody is going to forget who Spider-Man is, and that's going to push people back. But if you already don't know who Spider-Man is, then can it really push you back? So my thinking was, well, he's never met him. He has no idea who he is. Even in his universe, he's never met him. So maybe that's a loophole into how he's going to be stuck in the MCU universe. Obviously, I was wrong, but that was kind of my thinking going into it. I don't mind. That's the thing. I don't mind him making jokes per se. It's just in moderation, and for the most part, I liked Andrew's jokes. I thought there were a couple scenes, like I mentioned earlier, the carjacking scene that I do not like. As a Spider-Man scene, I don't like it because he crossed the line into Deadpool territory for me, where he doesn't feel like Spider-Man anymore. He feels like Deadpool. He's not being corny, and he's not being silly and goofy. He is, but he's doing it in a. It's hard to explain. There's a nuance to it where Peter, when he quirks and stuff, or when he quips and stuff, it's out of his nerd brain, and that's he's confident now. So he's just saying he's confident. He's doing his thing. He has the mask on, but he's still a nerd. He's still a dorky kid with a mask on. And I felt Andrews, for me anyways, drifted a little too far into very overconfident Deadpool territory. And Holland's was just very kind of obnoxious early on. In the early days of Tom Holland Spider-Man, he was very obnoxious and too much. He had it, and he had the quips and stuff. It's you who's out, Gavi, out of your mind. That's something. It's not cool. It's not a cool thing to say. It's funny because it's a dorky kid that has a little more confidence now that he's wearing a mask. Even lines like, hey, why don't you let mom and dad talk for a minute, or stuff like that. There's actually a video on YouTube that compiles all the quips and stuff that Toby said, or I won't say all of them, but a lot of the quips he had in his trilogy, and it's really funny, but it's dorky. And that's what I like about it. It's in moderation. He doesn't do too much. It has serious moments. He knows when it's too serious, but he's also he is a dork, and he is a nerd, and he, his idea of trash talk and stuff like that is goofy. Him with Doc Ock was really great. I thought their interactions were great. Here's Your Change is a great one. It's one of my favorites. Him saying, you're starting to get on my nerves. I have a knack for that. That's a great one. I like that. I like that style. Whereas you had Andrews he's very Deadpool. He's reckless, and he's mocking the guy, and he's being, overly confident. And you have Tom Holland just, oh, you have a metal arm? That is so cool. And it's just too childlike. So I felt like maybe we haven't reached perfection. For me, as of what we've seen, the Raimi movies perfected it for me. That's the formula I like. Granted, not everybody likes it. I'm certainly cool with that. Not everybody thinks it's the best version, and I'm cool with that. But for me, I think that had the perfect balance of just amount of heart, just enough quips, and a high level of dorkiness that just made it feel wholesome. It's a wholesome trilogy. Let me see. Have I read a Spider-Man comic? I used to read them back in the day. I started getting more into when I was watching the cartoon heavy as a kid. I never had access to comic books. So what I would do is on the bus, I had my little clique of friends that I had. We were kind of the nerdy group of the school, and I won't even say nerdy, the dorky kids of the school. And we would talk about, it was mostly Star Wars was what it was, but I liked Spider-Man and Marvel and DC. But every now and then they would say, hey, look, my brother bought me this comic book, and a lot of times it was the Punisher. That was usually what I was reading. But occasionally I could come across a Spider-Man comic or something, and I would just borrow it from them. I'd read it, and then I'd give it back. So that was the extent of my comic book, reading life, because I didn't have access to comic books, as a kid. Not really. I did end up getting a few, but it just it wasn't to the extent of some people, and especially not to the extent of some of my friends who really got a lot of it. Most of my stuff, it come from, like I said, the cartoon. I loved the 90s cartoon, Spider-Man. Obviously, I watched Batman the Animated Series, and obviously Star Wars. Anything Star Wars I love. And then the movies. That was most of my context for Spider-Man. Again, a couple of the comics, but it wasn't in abundance like a lot of people. Is it best? Andrew's best Spider-Man. Tom is very different. I agree. I think Tom is different. And after No Way Home, and they announced already that they've greenlit another Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland. I think he has the potential to become my favorite. If they play their cards right, he has the potential. If they continue down this path that they've just started, where he has a clean slate and he can be Spider-Man. See, that's one thing I love about the Tobey movies is he was Spider-Man. He was Spider-Man on his own. Andrew was Spider-Man. Tom Holland hasn't been Spider-Man yet to me. He's been. He was everybody. I like to see a lot of the memes, people calling him Iron Boy Jr. Obviously, in reference to the meme for Spider-Man 3, but Iron Boy Jr. And that's accurate, with Civil War and Homecoming and Infinity War and Endgame, and even a lot of Far From Home. He was Iron Boy Jr. And certainly he had his own little individual moments where he shined, like at the end of Homecoming, when he fights Vulture off by himself. Very good moment. And that was the best part of the movie in regards to him. Far From Home, he about halfway through, he decides to, become his own. And I like it, but it still never reached the point of him being Spider-Man to me, because he had so much that he was relying on. He wasn't Spider-Man. Spider-Man in the MCU up until this point had been, Peter Parker, MJ, Ned, Tony, pretty much all the Avengers, Happy, May. He had this huge circle, and then you throw in the fact that he had the technology, the Stark tech, and the different suits, and all the technology, build whatever he wanted, and it was never, and even the AI helping him with stuff, he was never Spider-Man. Spider-Man was a whole group of people making it work. So what I love so much about the end of this movie is every bit of that's gone. He no longer has May. He no longer has MJ and Ned, that guy in the chair. He doesn't have the Avengers or Tony or Happy or the Stark tech. He doesn't have anything. Now it's just him in a crummy apartment, listening to the police scanner, making homemade suits. And that's Spider-Man to me. That's the feel of Spider-Man that I enjoy. That's what the Tobey movies captured to me so perfectly, was that Spider-Man. Yeah, MJ finds out at the end of the second movie, and then the third movie, there's like conflict with that, and then Harry finds out. But it's played in a way where he's still alone. He doesn't have support now, and it's hinted that Aunt May knows. And I like the idea that Aunt May knows that he's Spider-Man, and just kind of helps indirectly with her, speeches and stuff. But he was alone as Spider-Man, and that's one reason that people love the second movie so much, is because he goes through the ringer. Every single thing, he's getting punched and punched and punched and kicked while he's down. Every turn, not a single positive thing happens to him, because he is alone. And I like that. That's Spider-Man to me. Whereas Holland hasn't felt like that. Holland's just been everything's been handed to him. Yeah, he worked. Obviously he was Spider-Man before, Civil War kicks in. And maybe those movies right there, I would have loved him as Spider-Man. But from where we start at Civil War, he's handed everything by Tony. Then in Homecoming, he uses Tony and the technology as a crutch until the end, and at the end he does pretty good. And then with his last fight with Vulture, and then the Avengers, he uses the Avengers as a crutch, and again it's Tony and Doctor Strange at that point, and that's Infinity War, and then you had Endgame, and he pops in for a little bit, and again it's the Stark tech, Far From Home, the Stark tech. And yeah, he doesn't have Stark, but he has everything else. MJ finds out, and May has already found out, and he has Ned, and he has, Happy, and all the technology and the AI to rely on. So he's never felt like Spider-Man on his own. And where this movie left off, it's like May's death and teaching him, finally relaying him the message of great power and great responsibility. And then it's almost like working with Andrew and Toby taught him how to be Spider-Man. Where at the beginning of the movie, he wasn't willing to give up his comfortable life as Spider-Man, his comfort. It's comfortable having MJ know. It's comfortable having Ned in the chair and May knowing and Happy and the Avengers. It's comfortable knowing having all that. And he wasn't willing to give that up. And then by the end of the movie, he is willing because he's learned now. May taught him, with great power comes great responsibility. And naturally that implies great sacrifice, and then working with Andrew and Toby, he sees that these guys have been making it on their own. These guys are alone, and they even have that sequence where he says, I've been on a team, and they say, we don't know what that's like. And yeah, they get to work as a team, but Tom gets to see that, Spider-Man, the essence of Spider-Man is being alone, and he can do it alone. And I almost think it feels like he learned that selflessness from the two of them. So when you get that ending, when he walks into, he decides, no, I'm going to let them be happy, and I'm going to be Spider-Man by myself. I think the potential for these next 3 movies that they've already greenlit is exponentially high. I don't even know if I used that right. It felt right. It's very high, I'll say. Might make you mad, but I think MJ is going to remember somehow, unfortunately. I mean, it's not going to make me mad. And I won't even say it'll be disappointing. If they do it in a way that makes sense, that's fine. But up until this point, his whole existence as Spider-Man has relied on somebody. And if let's say MJ does find out, which I'm with you. I think, and honestly, if they never, it almost seems like they left it open to go either way. They could go the way that they do figure out MJ and Ned end up, back in his life and back to the way things were, at the end of whatever arc they're setting up. Or they could go the complete opposite way, and this movie was a bookend for their characters, and this is the last we see of MJ and Ned. If either one, I think is fine if they do them right. I prefer that if this is Ned and MJ's bookend. I think it was great. Even Happy, as much as I enjoyed the characters, Happy, I really loved the character of Happy, but MJ and Ned, as much as I enjoyed them and I thought they were really great in this movie, I felt it was a perfect bookend to their arcs. And now they go off to college and start living their lives. And Peter knows that they're happy. He knows that they're okay. So I'm completely fine with that being it. With that being the bookend for those characters. I think, for me personally, I think that's what I would prefer. Not because I have anything against the characters. Like I said, I loved what they did with them. I thought they were great. And that moment that they have on the roof after the Toby and Andrew show up and they're on the roof and they have that nice little intimate moment where they come up and they just hug Peter and he cries with them. and they all cry together. That was, in my opinion, even with all the greatness that they had in the movie, that was one of the best moments in the entire movie. Was that nice little intimate moment between three friends who are experiencing a tremendous amount of loss. And I love that. And I thought that was great. So even with moments like that, like I said, I grew to really enjoy their characters. And I think Ned, honestly, I know it's not going to happen. I know this isn't a bookend, because Ned, obviously, they're setting something up with the magic and being with Doctor Strange, maybe. Maybe that was it. Maybe it was just a nice little plot device for this movie, and that's it. I certainly hope so. That's one of my problems with superhero properties, is when they start making everybody super. And I hate to sound like Syndrome, but when everybody's super, no one is. And that's my problem with a lot of the shows. That's what my problem with the Arrowverse was, when all of a sudden Laurel comes back as a superhero and Sarah's back as a superhero and everybody's becoming super. And now you just have this cast of a bunch of superheroes. It's bloated and it gets ridiculous to me. And Gotham was the same way. I loved the show Gotham. The first season I thought was great. Second season was really good. It had some stuff that I didn't like. It had some stuff I really liked. And then it just started to get too out there, where everybody started becoming either a hero or a villain, with Solomon Grundy and everything. What's up, Colleen Webster? This is the reason why MJ's going to remember somehow, because she is too big an actress for her to off. And, I think you're right. And like I said, I don't think they're going to get rid of either one of them. Because, like I said, it seems like they were setting something up with Ned and Doctor Strange. And then, like you said, with Zendaya, it seems like they're just. I don't think they're going to actually go through with it. But if they did, I think that would be great. As much as I love what they did, and as much as I think their characters really come into their own for this movie, I think it's a great, great ending to that trilogy. Now we've got that trilogy out of the way. We can focus on Tom Holland getting to be Spider-Man. And we can bring in actually even some of the crazier villains, because now he's fought Doc Ock. Now he's fought Lizard and Electro and Sandman, and he hasn't fought Venom yet. So that's one thing I kind of wish we would have got to see. But he's fought all these other villains. And now it's just opened the door for other villains. You've got Kraven the Hunter, which is already, I've heard buzz that's been confirmed in something. I don't know. Like I said, I try to avoid all that, so I just hear the tail end of different ideas. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I heard Kraven the Hunter, and you have Scorpion, and you have, obviously now with Morbius and stuff, you have the opportunity to open up to all these new villains that are untapped. He's faced all the popular ones now. Well, I won't say all. He's faced a lot of the popular ones now. Now you can kind of dig into a little deeper into his rogues gallery. So that's interesting to me. I guess what we're talking, I'll go ahead and say, I'm not going to even lie to you. When May died, I got choked up. And May was someone that I thought was always just a background character. Actually, I want to wind back. When he had the college thing and the bridge fight with Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. I loved that. The fight was fantastic. I thought everything was great. The nanotech taking over his arms and him being able to control it remotely was really cool. And then Alfred Molina was just selling it, with how frustrated and angry he was all the time was really funny. And he's just a world-class actor, in my opinion. And so that was great. Willem Dafoe. If anybody was going to dethrone Thanos as being the best Marvel villain up until this point, it would be Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Or best MCU villain. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is... Obviously, Green Goblin, is the Joker of the Spider-Man universe. He's the nemesis to Spider-Man. And I love Spider-Man 1 so much. Tobey Maguire back in 2002. the first Spider-Man with Willem Dafoe, really making his debut. I love it. I think it's great. I think he surpassed himself. I think he went more evil as well as being more vulnerable. He went extreme both ways. Where now you see him at his low points, he's extremely vulnerable and you feel bad for him and he just wants to help and he wants to get better. And then that switch flips. He just becomes so evil and conniving, and Willem Dafoe really got to shine. And that was something when after the first appearance of the first appearance of Green Goblin and on the bridge, and then it cuts to him later, and you see him in the alleyway, and he's covering his glider up, and he's got the helmet hanging on the dumpster, and then he's having his conversation with himself, and he breaks the helmet with a rock. I knew a lot of fans were going to be really happy because I know that was one of the biggest complaints of the original movie was that the mask, he felt like a Power Ranger. I never had that problem with his suit. I thought the mask was great. It made sense. I've seen the leaked footage of what it was going to be with the makeup and stuff, how his looking look. And while it would have been cool and Sam Raimi directed it would have been great, I don't think it makes as much sense. And you wouldn't have been able to do the duality as well, I don't think. With with the idea that that's his face. Now, if that's just a mask, that's the difference. If it's supposed to be his face, you can't get that duality as well, where he's to himself in the mirror and everything like that, which I think is what makes him stand out. Green Goblin is living in Norman's body. They're not the same person. They're two different people living in the same body. And so I think the movie just gave him a chance to really just, what they always say, chew the scenery. He was fantastic. I think, like I said, if anyone was going to dethrone Thanos as being the best MCU villain, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin would do it. And he was great in this movie. And the whole time I was watching it, all I could think of was, why was this guy never the Joker? Why not let this guy be the Joker? But that was a different topic for a different day. But so you get to see the villains, obviously. Then the setup with, going to capture them and hit them with the web, and they'll appear in the boxes, and you'll be good. So he goes, obviously, he finds Sandman, Electro. Definitely more low tier villains. I was never a fan of Electro. Not crazy about Jamie Foxx, but I thought this version of him was the best that we could have gotten. And he was actually pretty entertaining in this one. Sandman felt he felt like a background villain. He was great, did what he needed to do, and that was it. He definitely wasn't the focus of the story. Lizard was the same way. It was definitely Doc Ock and Green Goblin were the focal points when it comes to the villain, and Electro were definitely the focal points of the villainy in this movie. And I thought they did an awesome. The fight scene. Hold up, I'm lagging on this end. It's bad if I'm lagging on this end. There we go. Am I still lagging? A little bit. Too bad though, it doesn't look like. I don't know. Okay, so but yeah, so then you go forward, they go to the room and they're gonna change everybody. It's Norman now, it's not Green Goblin. And I thought he's so charming and likable. It made it a little more tragic. Okay, this is working. Is that gonna work better? Make it stop lagging as much. Okay. I'm just watching it. I can see that it's exactly what the difference is now. As long as I can't hear it, it is. I can hear it lagging. Okay, that's not good. That's weird. Let me see if this one's like that. That is way behind. Okay, but maybe it's fixed. I can't tell. That's the issue. I don't want to keep talking if you can't hear what I'm saying. It sounds a little better. Okay, yeah, it sounds better. All right, so yeah, it's better. I don't know what the deal was there. Some technical difficulties. Head of Sony says time movie. Peter, remember Parker, Spider-Man. That means someone will. Or Spider-Man. I bet that is Nick Fury. It's possible. I think it's definitely possible, but I think with what they set up in this movie, I think they were cutting ties with the Avengers. Where now the Avengers, the new Avengers, are going to go their way. Spider-Man's going to go his way, and it seems like they're wanting to build a separate universe, a separate Spider-Man universe. It's still in part of it's still in the same world as the Avengers, but it's a separate deal. And I hope that's what they do. It's kind of the same way I feel with Batman. I love the Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League was great. I loved it. It was great. I've come around on BVS. I loved it. And they're building that world, with Aquaman and Wonder Woman and Superman and Flash. And if they would have done it. And here's what I was wanting, though. You have all that. And well, you know what? Forget about that. The new one that they're doing. Obviously, Flash is going to be doing Flashpoint or setting up Flashpoint or something. And I think they're going to use that as a way to wipe the slate clean of the Snyderverse. And they're going to they're starting fresh in DC. Despite how I feel about that, doesn't matter, because then on the other side, you have the Justice League that they're wiping the slate clean, and they're about to start building towards the Justice League. Over here, you have Batman. Matt Reeves' Batman's coming out, and what it looks like they're doing. Again, like I said, I don't look up any spoilers, no leaks. It's just from my speculation of what I've seen. It seems like they're wanting to build a standalone Batman universe where Batman is grounded. He's focusing on, obviously, this movie, The Riddler. I think they're going to have an end credit scene in this that's going to tease another villain, possibly the Joker. They're going to have the next movie is going to focus on somebody else. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe they do Two-Face, or maybe they do someone off the wall. I'm drawing a blank right now. Maybe they do Deathstroke, or something like that. Maybe they do something like that, but they're building a standalone universe. And what I think is going to happen, what I think they're trying to do with the Flash movie, is they're wanting to wipe the slate clean of the Snyderverse. And now Batman is the first movie in this new universe. Then once they've got the slate clean, I think they're going to start start up the other ones. Maybe they start with a Superman. Maybe they do another Superman. I know they've talked about it. Or maybe they do another Wonder Woman. I don't know. But they do something over here. And slowly but surely they're going to start merging, and then they're going to have crossover universes. That's what I think they're doing there. And I hope that's what they do with Spider-Man. Because now Spider-Man has crossovered with the Avengers. He's helped fight Avengers level threats. And now this movie, yeah, it was still kind of an Avengers level threat. You had Doctor Strange in there, and it was universe shattering, but it was still very down to earth. It was down to earth while being as far away from Earth as you can be, because he was fighting very grounded, personal villains. And I think this is a new chapter for Spider-Man. And I think that's the direction they're going to go. I think they're going to start building a standalone Spider-Verse with Tom Holland in the next trilogy. And where they go from there, I don't know. But I think that's what they're going to do. And then the Avengers are about to go their own way. And I feel like this is a fork in the road where now they have separated from now on. And yeah, there'll still be some stuff here and there. Maybe he still participates in the Avengers, but his universe is standalone now. You know, obviously this is all just speculation. We can't know for sure. But where they left the movie off, I hope that's what they do. Where he gets his own universe. He's no longer a big player. Actually, I doubt he participates in the Avengers anymore. At least I hope not. As much as I like him in the Avengers, and as much as I like the idea of him being in the Avengers, I think I like the idea more that he's on his own idea. What's up, Scooter Boy? I tried to get Mr. Bobby in here. We were going to talk about it, but actually I got a message. Let me see if it's from him. Let me see. Gotta answer this back real fast. There we go. What you up to, Scooter Boy? But yeah, so what I was saying, I hope that's what they do. That's what it seems like they're doing. Is they're split up. Avengers are going to go in their way. Spider-Man's going in the other way. But yeah, so the villains were great. I'm trying to think of what else that I haven't really touched. Obviously the big moment, when May dies was a serious deal for me. I felt it more the second time I watched it than I did the first time. The first time I was in more shock. Like I remember whispering over to my brother when it happened. I asked him, I said, are they going to have the balls to do this? And when you see him throw the bomb, I was like, I think they're going to have the balls to do this. And then he slaps it away and she gets up. I said, no, they didn't. They didn't have the balls to go through with it. And then she collapsed. I said, wait a second, I spoke too soon. And great scene. Heartbreaking scene. It's just as another puzzle piece towards the making him a more in character Spider-Man. Now it's just another step, taking that necessary loss to help him learn the lessons that he has to learn like the others did. And then obviously you have the great scene where the portal opens and you see Andrew and he comes through. I'd be lying if I said I didn't cry. And I would really be lying if I said I didn't cry on the second part, because then the second portal opens up. And I remember when the first one opened up and I saw him standing down there, I leaned to my brother. I said, that's Andrew. I could tell by the eyes. I said, that's Andrew. And he come running through and he pulls the mask off and everybody in my theater went nuts. And I was just sitting there and I could feel it. And I was just, I remember I clapped a little bit and I just sat there like, this is happening. And then they have their interaction, which was hilarious. And I told my brother, I said, are they going to do it? Are they really about to do this? And then she says, well, I guess we just, keep trying till we get the right Peter. And I was like, oh boy, here it goes. And that second portal opened up and he just comes walking through. And I can't even describe how that felt, seeing that. That was an experience. That's a theater experience I'd say is pretty much unrivaled. Endgame was a great theater experience. Infinity War was an amazing theater experience. But I think this movie was probably the best. that moment was so great, and it really got me. And it really got me the second time around even more. And I think because I knew it was coming, I didn't have the will they, won't they, and I knew it was happening. That when it did happen, it allowed me to just experience it, you know, with all the people that were seeing it for the first time. And I mean, I was wiping tears the whole time. That was so special. That was a special moment for me. Um, Definitely something that any other, I haven't had it with another movie yet. I will say that. Um, but so that moment was, like I said, it was unrivaled. It was a great scene, and I think they did it great. Um, then obviously they meet up. They have a great moment on the rooftop where they're talking about the loss all of them have experienced, and then they decide, let's work together, let's do this, and then they're in the lab, and the way they banter with each other is hilarious. The way they play off of each other, I thought was great. Um, and I picked up on a lot more the second time going in, that just things, that little nods and little jokes that the first time I was just so hyped and so excited that this was happening that I missed a lot. So the second time, yes, I was still hyped and excited, but I was able to pay attention a little more, and it was just it was fantastic. And their little jokes and stuff that they had in there, where they're just playing off of each other, and I thought, while all three of them really played good together, I thought Toby and Andrew were on a whole nother level of chemistry, of how funny and how much fun they had together. They Which leads into what I was going to say about the comment earlier, where you were saying you think maybe Andrew's going to have something further. I was talking with Mr. Bobby, who was originally going to be in here tonight, and we were talking about kind of what it seemed like they were doing, because I'd said the same thing. It seems like they opened the door, and it doesn't seem like they closed it. They opened it, and we got a little taste of them back on screen together, and then they left, never shut the door behind them, because it seems like they have it there now, where they are going to be pulling from there again. And we were talking about some ideas that they could do, and I said, what would be great is if they had this, like a show. They have all these Marvel shows that are happening right now. Hawkeye's happening right now as we speak, and they have all these shows. I said, how cool would it be if they had a show? This is just wishful thinking, but how cool would it be if they had a show where you had Andrew and Toby's Spider-Man in the same universe as this buddy cop thing, where they're just dealing with, like, a villain of the week type of deal, old school buddy cop type show, that's slam full of comedy, a lot of cool Spider-Man action, and then just a lot of wholesome moments. I think that would be really cool. And that was something that we were talking about. Do I think they would do that? I don't necessarily think they would go that far. Fingers crossed, but I don't think they would do that. Now, it does seem like if they were going to do anything close to that, it would be something with Andrew. And I definitely agree with the Venom thing seems possible, just because, like I said earlier, the line where they're talking about how they fought aliens, and he said, I want to fight an alien. And then, Venom, gets sucked away into a different universe. It would be interesting if those coincided, and Tom Hardy's Venom and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man got to go head to head. Again, I wish it was Tom Holland's that got to go up against Venom and stuff, which again is I know people were disappointed. Most of the reviews that I've watched on it have said that their biggest negatives are with the Doctor Strange scene where they actually do the spell. And I agree that it's the weakest writing of the entire movie is that scene. I think just a couple of minor tweaks could have made that scene so much better. One of those just being a conversation beforehand about the stipulations of what it could mean. Obviously, then you mess up some stuff like that. It's out of character on Doctor Strange's part. I think as far as Peter goes, I think it's very in character. He's a kid. He's, impulsive and he in the moment he's caught up in the moment. He's thinking, oh, this would make their lives so much better. Okay, I can get that he's not going to think about all the possibilities, but Doctor Strange had no reason not to. And he does, at the beginning of the scene, he says, we use this, or we did this to save people, save half of all life. We did this not because someone's life got messy. So he was already thinking clear, and then he just flips. He says, well, if we make them forget, and then he almost says it like it's a nonchalant thing. Oh, we did it for a party, it's no big deal. We can just do that. Well, then after the spell goes wrong and he talks to him, he says, you were going to make me brainwash the whole, what is it? I don't know if he says the world, but basically you were going to make me brainwash everybody. And you haven't even tried all your options. So now all of a sudden that spell is a big deal. So I think it was kind of inconsistent. That scene, he kept flip-flopping between being, normal and being too, uncharacteristically impulsive. Which, again, it didn't take me out of the movie like it did for some people. Some people are saying that the first half of the movie sucks and the second half is great because of that. To me, it very much feels like they just rushed through it so they could get to the part everyone wanted to see. And obviously it seems kind of lazy when you look at the way they wrote it, but to me, that's not important. I don't want to say it's not as important as, it's not as big as the way they landed the plane. They have it in the scope of the rest of the movie that is very, very, very minuscule for me. Yes, it's a big deal. Yes, it's out of character for Doctor Strange, but it works for me. As much I do think it could have been better, but for what we got, I think it works. But so that's not necessarily a negative for me like it is for everybody else. It definitely is a writing flaw in the movie, a plot flaw. But as far as being a negative on the movie, it doesn't bother me as much. But what does bother me is the Venom end credit scene. I felt like by doing it the way that they did, they didn't justify the end credit scene of Let There Be Carnage. Because you had all this build up between the movies of seeing the end credit scene there and then knowing that he was going to make an appearance in this one, for his appearance to be going right back. Just to drop off a little drop of symbiote. I think that's a waste. And I think that's the biggest disappointment and my biggest negative with this movie. And obviously it's not even really with the movie itself. It's with the end credit scene. So I think it's safe to say that I loved this movie. The end fight was great. Seeing all of them work together, again, their banter and their how they played off of each other was spot on. I thought this movie was fantastic. A home run for sure. Again, like I said, maybe I'll do a Spider-Man ranking where I talk more in depth on Spider-Man as a whole. I kind of did tonight, so maybe I'll just leave that other one to a ranking. But I definitely want to do something like that in the future. But I'll save that for a time when I've actually put thought into how I would rank all the movies. So as it stands right now, this movie is absolutely fantastic. For anyone who hasn't watched No Way Home, go watch it. Obviously, if you haven't watched it, you've watched this stream, you know pretty much everything that's going to happen. So I don't understand you or your methods, but to each their own, I guess. But and if you have watched it, yeah, share with anybody. Let's talk about it. This movie, this is a win. This is the best movie that I have seen in the theater in a long time. I will say, in at least a year. it's the most fun I've had in the theater. It's one of the best quality movies that I've seen. Like again, in the theater. I missed some of the big ones this year that I wanted to see due to different things, sicknesses and stuff. But overall, I thought this movie was a win. It's probably going to end up being my favorite movie of the year. And there's some good ones on there. You know, I thought James Gunn's Suicide Squad was way up there for me. I loved that movie. But I think this one did beat it. It has a lot of nostalgia on its side, so that may be what edges it out over the rest. But I thought this was a fantastic movie. It was a win for Marvel. The best thing they've put out since the Infinity Saga, for sure. And in all of the MCU, this ranks very high for me. It's up there, probably top 5. I don't know. I've never sat down and ranked it out. It might be top 5. We'd have to see. We'll find out. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end this stream here. We're at 2 hours now. It's almost 1:30 in the morning my time. So I'm gonna go ahead and I will leave y'all with that. It has been fun. I love talking about it. Obviously, I've been going no script, just rambling off the top. So there's a lot of rabbit trails in this. There's a lot of kind of all over the place with thoughts and interruptions and everything. But, it's been a lot of fun. I wanted this to be more of just discussion style, and I think we had a pretty good one. I appreciate everyone who commented. I appreciate y'all for commenting. I appreciate everyone who watched and didn't comment. And everyone who was first-time viewers to the channel, welcome to the Oasis. This is where dreams come true. And I hope to see y'all again. I hope to see everybody again. But that's going to do it for me tonight. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this. And we will be back on schedule for a Monday night show. As of right now, anyways. You can always follow me on Twitter for all the updates for channel news and everything. That's where I update everything. So definitely follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch. And you can subscribe because we're on YouTube right now. So you can subscribe, like the video, share the video. And let's just get the word out. The Ding Nation is the fastest growing nation in the world. That's what we're going to say. So I appreciate everybody who watched again. I couldn't do this without y'all. I did, but it would be a lot more lonely. So I appreciate everybody who watched, and just be watching for new content that's going to be coming in the future. And hope you enjoyed the show. Chill.